Hello and welcome to Bookish Meet the Authors. I'm your host, Nyssa Couto, and joining me today is Frank Gutta to talk about his book, Your Safe Retirement Roadmap. Hi, Frank. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell me about the 4-bucket system.
Well, in my book, I talk about the 4-bucket system because my target audience is primarily 55 and over, people that are getting closer to retirement and now have had a nice nest egg saved in their 401k or retirement plan. And now their goal should be more about protecting it and make sure that income lasts for the rest of their lives, because they could live about 30 years in retirement. So the first bucket I talk about is your liquidity bucket. This is money you keep aside for emergencies that you can get access to almost immediately. It could be in a checking account or a savings account. So you would keep maybe 6 months, a year's worth of expenses in that account, because emergencies will happen and usually happen at the most inopportune time. So you don't want a short-term emergency to mess up your long-term goals. The second bucket is the growth bucket. This is where you would invest in vehicles like stocks, bonds, real estate, a growth annuity, something that will grow over time, not only to keep up with inflation, but hopefully outpace inflation. The third bucket is your income bucket. This is the bucket you want to use that's going to give you an income stream that is guaranteed for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. And there's only 3 vehicles that can do that. The first one is Social Security. Social Security is a payment to you for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Essentially, it's an annuity issued by the US government. The second vehicle is a pension. And today, less than 20% today have a pension plan.
Oh, wow.
So we need to create our own. And the third vehicle is an annuity. So there's a lot of misconceptions about an annuity. So what is an annuity? An annuity is an investment just like other investments, but it's issued by an insurance company. So you give some money to an insurance company, they invest it, and in return, they give you a return on your money. So most vehicles, you can get dividends or interest or capital gains, or you get your principal. But insurance company has the secret sauce, which is longevity credits. And I'll explain that a little bit more when I give you some examples.
Okay. It sounds really interesting. But what is the retirement danger zone?
Oh, okay. Before I get into that, I haven't gone to the 4th bucket.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And the 4th bucket is what you want to leave for the next generation. And you can do this for pennies on the dollar, estate and income tax free. But what's more important, it gives you that your permission slip to spend all your money because your kids are already taken care of. So.
Yeah. And now what is the retirement danger zone?
The retirement danger zone is the 5 years before and the first 5 years during retirement. Because let me give you an example of what could happen in that period of time. There's 2 people, I'm going to use fictitious names, Mr. Smith and Miss Jones. They each had about $1 million in their retirement account and 401k plans. They both retired at age 65. They both had an average annual return of about 10.5% while they were working and the money was accumulating for them. The only difference was that Mr. Smith retired 5 years before Miss Jones. And they felt that if they take out 5%, they both took out 5% out of their portfolio. They thought, well, if we had an average annual return of 10.5, they took out 5%, they should be okay. But an average annual return of 10.5 doesn't mean that they got 10.5 every year. Some years they made 10%, some years they made 30%, some years they lost 30%. So you got to take all that into account. Mr. Smith, however, ran out of money, whereas Ms. Jones was okay. So what actually happened? Mr. Smith didn't realize that the year he retired, the market also went down. So he essentially was digging a hole with 2 shovels. One, the market's going down, and number 2, he's taking out money. And he eventually got himself into a death spiral that he could never recover from and had to move in with his kids. Ms. Jones, on the other hand, the year she retired, the market went up. So she had a cushion. Even the years later when the market went down, she managed to survive that and had enough money even up to the day she died. So that's what's called the sequence of returns risk, especially in the retirement danger zone. You've got to change your mindset from thinking of risk and growth to safety and guarantees.
Yeah, that's true. Tell me about the roadblocks that need to be addressed in retirement.
Like everything in life, there's going to be roadblocks in retirement. And the first roadblock is inflation risk, because what it'll cost in the future will be a lot more expensive than what costs today.
Yeah.
30 years ago, you could fill an entire grocery cart with groceries with $20. Today, what can $20 buy? Maybe 2 items.
Maybe.
So you can take that into account.
Yeah.
The second roadblock is stock market risk, like what happened in 2001 and 2008. If you retired like Mr. Smith, in 2008 and the market goes down, you could have a big problem. And, you don't want to end up like Mr. Smith and move in with your kids. The third roadblock is long-term care risk. There's a 70% chance that a 65-year-old will need some kind of care during their life. Every 40 seconds, somebody in America has a stroke. That kind of blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. Less than 2/3 of a minute, somebody has a stroke in America. So you need to address that. And there's creative ways to pay for long-term care using the Pension Protection Act that Congress passed back in 2010 that most people don't know about.
And speaking of long-term care,
Yes,
in the book, you talk about creative ways to pay for long-term care.
correct. Well, the Pension Protection Act in 2010 that Congress gave insurance companies incentives to pay a multiple of whatever people invest with them to pay for long-term care. So you could say you had a vehicle of about $100,000. It'll give you about $300,000 with a bucket of $300,000 to pay for long-term care. So you can leverage that by using the Pension Protection Act.
Yeah. Now, can you give me an example of why the 4-bucket system works so well?
Well, several reasons, like what happened to Mr. Smith, for example. Had he had the third bucket, which was the lifetime guaranteed income through an annuity, had he created that, he would have received the check for the rest of his life, no matter how long he lived. Whereas when he had a portfolio of stocks and bonds, he ran into that problem. So that's why I say your mindset has to change.
Yeah.
By using the 4-bucket system, you take care of your liquidity needs, you take care of your long-term growth needs to keep up with inflation. You make sure your income stream is guaranteed for the rest of your life. And if you got some monies that you want to leave for the next generation, you got that taken care of as well.
Wow. Yeah. So why is this a 1-bucket system most traditional with stockbrokers doesn't work for retirement?
Because they've got primarily 1-bucket system, which primarily consists of stocks and bonds. As you get older, they said, well, we want to reduce your stock holdings and increase your bond holdings. But bonds can also go down.
Yeah.
Today, we are in the lowest interest rate environment. And most economists would agree that interest rates can only go one way, and that's up. And when interest rates go up, guess what? Bond values go down, and you could end up like Mr. Smith. So this 1-bucket system of growth, and taking unnecessary risk doesn't make sense for people that are getting closer to retirement.
So it's the whole don't put all your chickens and all your eggs in one basket type of thing.
That too, and yeah, you can't just be taking unnecessary risk. You see, if you're 20 years old, you got time on your side. You're not going to retire for 40, 45, maybe 50 years. And you can, over time, the market does go up. But what happens when you retire and the market goes down? That could be the big problem.
What is the lowest risk investment that someone can do for retirement?
Well, for retirement, yeah, there's different, but the lowest risk are investments that have no stock market risk. So cash in the bank, savings account, but they're paying so low rates that they not even, they don't even keep up with inflation. There's indexed annuities that protect your principal. So when the market goes up, you get to sharing the upside. You don't get all the upside, but you get a large percentage of the upside. But when the market goes down, you lose nothing. So the worst you can do is a zero return. So that, I think, makes a lot of sense especially for seniors, because they want to protect what they have still get decent returns without risking any principal.
Makes a lot of sense. And now, where can people find your book and you? So if they want to reach out to,
Sure,
yeah.
my book, Your Safe Retirement Roadmap, is available on Amazon.
Mhm.
And, they can easily look that up. That should be no issue. If they need to get hold of me, my email address is frank@frankguttacpa.com, and I can work with anybody in the country. What else would you like to know?
You don't have social media of any kind that they can get in touch with you, like LinkedIn, Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's just Frank Gutta, and you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook if that's what you want to do.
So thank you, Frank, so much for joining me. It was lovely having you on the show, learning
Thank
about
you.
retirement. I'm sure that there are people who are definitely benefit from all your advice.
Yeah, I just like to end by saying, you insure your car in case of an accident, you insure your house in case of a fire. Doesn't it make sense to insure your retirement?
Of course. Yes, it does. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you everyone for joining me. And I'll see you next time on Bookish Meet the Authors. Bye bye for now.
Thank you.